Good evening, one and all. Thanks for joining me. This is James from mypeexam.org. I'm in the sort of auspicious surroundings of my elder daughter's bedroom, the quietest room in our house, and looking forward to doing this session with you this evening. So there's going to be a few occasions this evening where I share my screen with you, and during those times, please feel very free and welcome to use the chat function, which is enabled this evening. I won't necessarily always see that chat when I'm sort of using other parts, when I'm using other aspects, other screens on the computer, but every time I come back into the webinar room, I'll catch up with that and try and answer any questions that you've posted there. So do feel free to post your questions in there. Now, look, we've got some real good people in here, people I've been working with over the last few weeks. Philippa, I know you're in this evening. Andy Guest as well, good to see you in there as well. Gary Sapswood, I've been communicating a little bit with over the last couple of days. Matt Weston, likewise, and there's a few others in there as well who I've been hearing plenty from and talking to plenty over the last few days. So it's great to see you guys and everyone else for that matter in here. So my first job is I'm going to share my screen with you just for a moment, and I'm going to show you, hopefully you can see that now, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do tonight. So look, we've got a very simple agenda, really. We're going to sort of go through each of these items and we're going to tick them off. We're going to first of all just make sure we understand what it's like to be a student on mypeexam.org, just so we know what we're getting our students into, really. I know a lot of you have used the services previously, but we'll have a good look at that. And then we'll move down this sort of agenda. Each item is 5 minutes. A couple might go over that, but quite a few of them will be significantly less than that. I'm going to mention that I've got this voucher code in here later on, so if you are not already signed up to the site and you're looking to do that in the coming days, that will be really useful to you. If you've already signed up, by the way, you can use that voucher code at any time in the future when you might make some additional purchase or investment in the services I offer. So look, before we start, I want to really draw attention to these daft little images I've got here. So this one here is me of my daughter and I together. I think we might be in a cafe. There's one here of my younger daughter with a garlic on her head. We're here together on a boat over here, and here's me with my dodgy, hairy shoulders on the Rio de Sella in northern Spain, having done a bit of kayaking. The reason I've sort of wanted to put these images in here is I really have the impression that people like you, people like me, we work incredibly hard, and sometimes just need to remind ourselves that we do that work to live, right? We do it to have a good time, and as much as we might get heavy and really philosophical about this service this evening, let's all remember that this is working so that we can have a really good time and have a lot of fun, and that's why we do it. So let's approach it in that way. So all that being said and all that being agreed, let's get cracking with this student account. If we sign our students up to this, what is it going to look like? What is it going to be like for them? What I'm going to do here, just for a second, I'm just going to change my screen so that you can see. It's going to go a bit weird for you in a second, but you can see hopefully that on the screen now, I'm taking the role as Darth Vader. Darth Vader, just for the purposes of this evening, is a student on mypeexam.org. He's a bit of a troublemaker for me. Showed some promise as a younger person, but God, everything's gone wrong since then. Anyway, so Darth Vader, first of all, when Darth logs in, the site, as I've already done here, the site customizes to Darth Vader. Some of you will already know that, okay? And probably the first thing to realize is that he's got this My Progress button. So if he clicks on that My Progress, it literally drags him down the homepage. Look, drags him down the homepage, and it brings him to this area here where any courses that he is enrolled for are listed. So one of the simple things that we can do, look, he's doing A2P here, exercise physiology. You can click on this sort of expand all button. It's also available up here, and it will show you that Darth has 6% completed this course, and then that we've got some scores for some quizzes and some lessons that are down here. So we can see already that Darth has passed this quiz, first go on the ATP PC system. That's good. Darth knows that, and he knows he's achieved that. But he should also know, look, that he hasn't started any lessons beyond the aerobic system, and also that he hasn't mastered any of the lessons, ATP and energy, lactic acid system, and aerobic system. So one of the things that Darth could do is he could click into the exercise physiology course, and then of course what happens then is he goes onto this sort of course page where he can see all of the content. Again, notice that he's ticked off against phosphocreatine system because that was the one that he passed. That was the ATP-PC system that he had mastered on that quiz. So look, let's go into for example, let's go into the ATP and energy lesson. Now, what do we find inside this if we are a student? Well, first of all, we get a bit of a description. This is the kind of thing you might find in a textbook or a revision guide, that sort of language, hopefully nice and friendly, familiar. And then in this particular lesson, we have 2 lesson topics. So, Darth may need to study these things before doing the assessment, so he might come into this lesson on the role of ATP, which I'm not going to sort of play right now, and you guys know pretty much how these videos work, but he's got a 9-minute video here which is going to teach him the content. Okay, he's going to teach him the content, and he's obviously going to make his notes. When he's done that, he's going to mark that off as complete. He's going to move on to the next topic. Now, notice up here he gets this little green dot, and we move on to the next topic area. Again, a 7-minute video roughly here on the introduction to energy. Again, Darth might take this tutorial, not necessarily straight after the previous one, but he's going to study this and he's going to mark it complete. Once he's marked the different topics complete, he's going to be brought back to the lesson page where he's going to be expected to do this quiz. Now look at these instructions. You must score 6 consecutive correct answers to pass this quiz. To be clear on this, I do not sort of recognize the notion of students doing an individual activity like a quiz or a worksheet or whatever it happens to be, and this idea of working to a C grade, working to a D grade. No, 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 no. Every single time they take these quizzes, every student, the objective should be 6 consecutive perfect answers, at least at the moment. That's my definition of mastery. So let's have a little look at this. We go into the quiz. What have we got to do? When ATP breaks down, energy is released. What term is given to a reaction where energy is released? Well, we hopefully know if we teach or if we study, that's an exothermic reaction. It's going to be embarrassing if I get some of these wrong, isn't it? Examine the image below and match up the description provided to the correct letter A, B, or C. Well, A, I know that is going to be ATPase. So that's that enzyme there. So I'm going to drag A in there. B, that looks to me like ADP. So I'm going to drag that down there. And of course, that means I've got an extra phosphagen that's hanging about at the end of that reaction. I carry on. Approximately how much ATP is stored in the human body? I know that that's 2 to 3 seconds worth, but think about the student. They're at this moment, they're sort of, oh, what was that? They're clawing at their mind. They think, oh, how long was that store? And they're trying to recall that with a little bit of kind of confusing data in there that's kind of trying to trick them up a little bit. Next, when ATP is stripped of its 3rd phosphate group in the process of generating energy, what does ATP become? And we know that that's ADP. We tick that off and we keep going. Which of these food groups provides energy for movement? Well, it's carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. We tick it off. Now, to be clear on this one, if the student had missed any correct answer or added any incorrect answer, they wouldn't have a partially correct answer, they'd have a wrong answer. Okay, so absolutely perfect answer is what's required. And finally here, huge question. Now notice some of these questions are really big. Complete the gap fill exercise by using the terms below to accurately complete the sentences which will be credited with marks in your A2P exam in relation to the role of ATP in the body. And I get provided these words here to include. So I know it's the biological currency of all energy, the only utilizable source of energy, spell it wrong, in the body. 2 to 3 seconds worth of stored energy. ATP is stored in all cells of the body, broken down in the presence of ATPase is our answer. Longer bouts of exercise must be achieved by the resynthesis. Spelling, spelling, spelling. Oh, I've gone capitals there. That shouldn't matter. I'll leave it like that. Resynthesis. The resynthesis of ATP is achieved by the 3 energy systems. Now remember, if I get anything wrong here, I lose my marks. The breakdown of ATP is an exothermic reaction, and it is a coupled, spelled correctly, reaction. When ATP is stripped of its 3rd phosphate group, it forms ADP. Now, have I spelled everything right? I've got to check it. The student's got to be really, really sure that they've got their answer. And I actually am not sure. So I'm going to tick, oh, what have I got wrong? It's a reversible reaction. I got it wrong. See how embarrassing. I did warn you. So look, what happens in this situation? I score 83.33%. Now, I can have a look on the leaderboard. I'm the most recent person to do this. We've got some other people. Sarah today has got 100% in there. But if I click here to continue, notice it takes me back to that quiz. Now, you might think, well, hang on, James, it's hard. Maybe lower ability in inverted commas students might find this inaccessible. The thing is, when we set something like a mastery challenge for students, if we only let them do it once, or they've only got access to it once, and we say it has to be perfect, then that is exclusive. If, however, we provide flexibility of time, access, space, then that is a very accessible concept, because people can then pace at their own rhythm. They can go through those experiences in the time frame and with the challenge that suits them. They can go back to the lecture, they can go back to the tutorial. As good as we, I'm sure, all are in that classroom, you know, the students can't press pause on us when we're delivering from that PowerPoint or Prezi, whatever it happens to be. But of course they can with these videos, and they can go and return to them at any time that they feel they need to. Okay, so look, I'm not going to take you through that quiz again, but if we go back to the home page, of course, my progress. Now, if I come down here and I now open this up, I'm actually just going to refresh that. Hopefully that score will come in for us. We should have. In fact, my score hasn't gone through. Oh, yes, it is down here. So there's our score that we just did, 83.3% down at the bottom here. It comes through onto our sort of my progress tracker for me. So I'm reminded again that I need to go into that process and do that again. All right, so I'm just going to come back into the screen here. Hopefully you can see the black screen. So a couple of things for me about this student account. It's based on mastery. That's really important to me. You know, this isn't just a have a go at a quiz sort of thing. No, it's expecting students to master topics and providing them a flexible and variable opportunity and access to those challenges. Of course, the mastery comes from a series of processes. Those processes are to study the tutorials. Those processes are to learn what you've recorded and learn what you've note taken. Those processes are, of course, then to have attempt the quiz once, twice, 3 times as necessary. And then, of course, think about how equipped the student is at that point then to go into something like a past paper question, something like a group task where they produce some kind of project work on the energy systems, for example. They'll be much better prepared to do that and to prepare themselves that way. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back into the and show myself here on the screen. Just going to see if there's any questions for you that people have asked. Thanks, Andy. Internet dropped out. So I hope the internet's back for you, Andy. Do drop me. I mean, it may not be able to if you don't have internet, but yeah, feel free to keep mentioning that to me. We are live. It's one of the things, right? It can go wrong here and there. But yeah, Ash, great question. Are the bank of questions the same each time they take quiz? It's completely randomly generated questions. So of course, the system exhausts those questions as it goes through. So we try and have a minimum number of quiz questions on each quiz that enables the quiz to be sufficiently different every time. Now, of course, when a student does a quiz 6-7 times, they're going to get a repeat question. That's going to happen, but there's enough variety in there that hopefully it's going to be relevant to them. So yeah, good question. And thanks for answering that on my behalf as well, Lloyd. You're absolutely right. I particularly try very hard on the A-level courses to have a really significant number of questions. On the GCSE, there tends to be, thanks Andy for letting me know that on the GCSE there tends to be less content there, right? In each topic area the content's maybe not as significant, so therefore the quizzes, they don't have quite the same stretch, quite the same scale in question types, but I try and keep adding them all the time. It's one of the things that never stands still on the site. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to screen share with you again, and I'm now going to take you through the process that we might want you guys to be aware of with regard to a teacher account. So, very simply, I'm just going to log out here, and I'm going to log back in up here, not as Darth Vader, but as James Anthony Sims. That actually happens to be me. And what I want you to sort of realize straight away is that the site kind of looks the same, but there are a couple of subtle differences. So look, it's my personalized homepage once again. If I press on my progress again, I'll be taken down to my teacher courses. Now notice I'm a teacher of A2 OCR exercise physiology, so that's available to me too, to prepare my lessons, to study, to plan lessons, to really learn what the student is going to experience, right? But don't forget as well that there's these topics on group work, on questioning techniques. There's these whole courses that you can study as a teacher, and I'll come back to that in a few minutes' time. Well, actually, no, let's go and have a look at that. If we go into this teacher support area here, and you can do it from my progress screen as well, but for example, we might go into the questioning techniques topic area here, and when we go into the questioning techniques topic, course I should say, we have a whole batch. In this case, we've got 13 HD tutorials that are based around the idea of setting up your classroom to have brilliant questioning techniques. So let's just say I was going to have a look at number 5, questioning technique, agreement circles. You know, it's a very simple lesson structure. I come in here, and this video is quite literally going to teach me how to set up this activity, agreement circles. There's no waffle. You know, it's not specific to one piece of content or another. You can use this in a range of scenarios. And there's 85 of these HD tutorials across 6 courses that enable the teacher to really, really invigorate the classroom. One thing I would say to everyone that's out there is that if you use MyPEXam well, it will change what happens in your classroom. So the reason I've written these 85 tutorials, and they grow every week, by the way, by Christmas there'll be 100. By next April there'll be 130 of them. But the idea of this is, if it's going to change the classroom, what does it change to? And that's what this is ultimately trying to answer for you. So we've got that. Let's go back to the home page now. Now notice we had questioning techniques, group work, learning concept courses. We had assessment and data course. We had classroom structures and using MyPEXam. But what is different for the student from the student account is that we have this black bar at the top of our screen. Look up here. Now, if I just hover over mypexam.org here, it takes me into my dashboard. So this is what I think a lot of teachers out there are going to be interested in with regard to tracking. Okay, I want to say something that I think is really important here. Tracking is a useful process, but it is only useful when the interventions that are brought about through that tracking are razor sharp and relevant to the learner. Okay, if we track for tracking's sake, I don't value that very highly, but if it gives us razor sharp data, real-time, volatile, live, game-changing data, then that means that we can intervene in a really sharp and effective way. All right, back to what I was saying. When we come into our dashboard, it's a very smart and simple looking screen. We have 3 tabs, which I'm going to go over for you. We have overview, activity stream, and assignments. Now with the assignments, I'm not going to go into great detail on this one tonight. I'm actually going to do a subsequent webinar on that actual topic. But just so you're aware, there are assignments in every course, I should say. When a student uploads an assignment, this is where the teacher finds that assignment, reads it, marks it, and returns it to the student in an automated process. But what I do want you to have a look at is this activity stream. Now look at the top entry right up here. It's just happened in real time. I can find out as the teacher that Darth Vader attempted a quiz ATP and energy and did not pass it. He did all right, he got 5 out of 6, but he didn't pass it. Okay, so I get that in real time. So all that data comes into my activity stream. Now, I haven't got a lot of data in mine because I've only got a handful of students. Now, next thing, we have this overview here. Now, I already know that, of course, I am managing the OCR exercise physiology course. So if I click on here, my 3 students in my group are going to be shown to me. Okay, so I've got a couple of options on here. First of all, I can email my students a little message. So that message could be, hi, do your homework, or whatever whatever the equivalent is. So that I can click that off, and that gets sent off to all of my students. And what I've got down here is I've got a very simple piece of information which shows me my 3 students, Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, and Princess Leia, who are in my group. And it just shows me very simply how they're progressing on this course, exercise physiology. But this is very simple information. We want much more info than that. We want much more data than that. So what can we do? Well, we've got this export user info button here. And if I click on here, you notice I get this little download down in the left-hand corner here. Now, I want to show you what I'm going to do with that. If I just open that data now, it's going to look very basic to you. Hopefully you can see that on the screen. It looks like it doesn't really do anything for us. But what you have available to you, it is completely free with the service. We have this OCR A2P exercise physiology tracker. Now this is relevant to any course that we have on the site. So every course is included. So all I'm going to do is I'm literally going to get all of the data. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to just find my way out of here, come back into my tracker document, which again, you've got access to, and you can have if I don't even need the teacher account, you can use it, but of course it's only really relevant to the teacher account. And I come down to this little tab here, courses, and I quite literally top left-hand corner, and all I'm going to do is paste my information in. Now again, it doesn't look too clever in that format, but if we now come back to completed steps, all of a sudden we've got something quite interesting. We can see now my 3 students, Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Princess Leia. We've got the course that they're on. the total number of steps they've got to complete. But look here, how many steps they've completed so far. Have they completed the course? Not yet, we know. The date will come in when they've completed it, but this is what's really interesting. Look, if we go down lesson by lesson on the MyPExam website, we can see which students have and have not mastered those areas. So look, very simple example. I've got Princess Leia here. She has mastered ATP and energy. We just saw that Darth Vader's struggling because I think it was I wrote coupled. What should I have written? I can't remember what it was now. But one of the first lines of attack when we've got this data, we say, okay, Princess Leia, you've done really well on that. Now I'd like you to work for 10 minutes with Darth Vader, developing that knowledge in him. It might be that Princess Leia works with both Darth and Luke, for example. Little family reunion almost. We can see that phosphocreatine system has been well absorbed by the students. We can see that Darth Vader is struggling again, and we can see in general that Darth Vader is struggling to really make pace. So where would we as the teachers put our time? Well, you could argue it's going to be in negotiating, working, developing, asking brilliant questions of Darth Vader in really sharp ways. Would we do it for the PC system? Possibly not. Would we use the PC system as the platform to develop other knowledge from Darth Vader? Quite possibly. So we have that level of kind of analysis in there. All right, let me take you back to the website now. So we've seen what the export user info does. I also want you to know that up here you have this little kind of TV screen here. It's called the Learning Management System. And I can click down here onto Group Administration. It takes me into a very simple screen. I've just got one group. It's called Example Group. We already know that my students are those three that are there, and I can click onto them. And again, I can message them, and it might be about their homework. It might just be a reminder just to say, come on, get it done. Whatever happens to be, I can send that off to them like that, and it goes straight off into their email. But also, if I want to look at an individual level kind of report, I can go, for example, into Princess Leia's report, click on here, and it gives me a very simple set of data, just all the quizzes they've ever done. But we want more. So the question is, how do we get more info than that? That's not useless, by the way. I mean, imagine having Princess Leia sat down next to you discussing that data. I don't mean literally Princess Leia, you know what I mean? Imagine you're sat down talking about this data. Okay, Princess Leia, tell me about the process that you managed to get from 83% to 100% in the aerobic system. How did you do that? What did you do? You'd learn so much about that student, so much about the process. It might even be things that could be applied to others. And it gives a lot of information about how to work with that student. But as I said before, we want more. So I'm just going to come back to my group administration button. You just click back to do that as well. But you'll notice here I've got a button called Export Results. Now again, watch down in this bottom corner, Export Results. I get a very simple set of data, Quiz 7, it's down here. And again, all I'm going to do is I'm going to open that. And it looks very basic. I'm literally just going to select all that data that's in there. I'm going to copy it. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my tracker now. That was not the right one, apologies. I'm going to go back into my tracker now, which is here. And where it says quizzes, again, same process. It's just top corner, paste, and all of a sudden, if we come into quiz activity, I've now got a huge range of data about these three students, okay? So what can we do with this? Well, first of all, one of the things that you can do is if you set a homework, and for example, let's say that that homework was on ATP and energy, you can just select that particular quiz area and say, right, who has done that homework? I can see that all my students have attempted it. I'm pleased with Luke Skywalker. He's had 4 goes at that and eventually mastered it. It's almost like you can see the learning happening. Again, Princess Leia here, she's had a good go at it, 83%, and then mastered it with 100. But Darth, we're worried about. He's had 3 goes now and he's not mastering that, and he seems to have given up. That is a concern. And again, it gives you razor sharp possibilities for intervention. Now, again, it could be that I come back into this. I want to say, right, now, I might want to look on a particular day that work is being done. So it could be that we've had a lesson, what was completed in that lesson. It could be, though, that you want to have a look at a particular student. So you're worried about Darth Vader. Let's look at the full profile. Well, we can see with Darth that he's only managed to master that 1. That, of course, reflects what we saw on the screen a moment ago. But what we can also see is that there's areas here that he's really struggling with. I do want to highlight for you that it will bring in all the students' quiz data, so it won't all necessarily be just from an exercise physiology course. So if they're doing psychology, if they're doing history, if they're doing alongside applied physiology or other components on A2, and likewise at AS, for example. It will bring all that data in, so you really can get a really full picture of how the students are performing. All right, so I'm going to come back to the dashboard now. And as I said, the only thing I haven't sort of shown you is this assignment. So I want to show that in a future webinar because it's quite a detailed process I want to go through with you. But just rest assured, you can receive assignments on the site, manage them in that way. If anyone's used Moodle, that sort of stuff, it's very similar sort of idea. All right, so back into the webinar space. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing screen with you and just come back in. All right. All right, so here we go. Let me just answer a couple of your questions. Matt Weston, will you offer BTEC specific courses in the future? I'm going to hesitantly say yes, I would like to do that. It's a huge challenge and one that I can't really take on this year, approaching the 2016 GCSE and A-level specification changes. So that obviously is going to be a bit of a focus, but it's going to happen. I've had some conversations about that with some big hitters from certain exam boards and publishers, and that is a possibility. Mark, do you have questions linked to short videos for analysis and observations? Good question. I mean, I'm assuming you're asking me that for, I'm not sure if you're asking that in relation to the oral exams for AS and A2 PE for OCR. Again, I am thinking about actually publishing a whole course for those sort of coursework modules, in which case, of course, there would be that sort of video. As you probably know, there's a couple of sensitivities around publishing videos of people performing and what have you, but that's certainly a possibility. Russell, where was the tracking account bit? I'm not totally sure on the question there. I'm not sure if you mean the download for the tracking document. That's available on the blog, so it's worth having a little go in that. Export results, Lloyd, that's where you get the quiz data from. The courses data comes from a different one. Oh, Wendy, is anyone else looking at a screen all blurry? That might just be my complexion, Wendy, to be perfectly honest. I was young once, but hopefully that's working okay. I'm getting good sort of signal and feed at mine, so I'm not sure if the internet is a little bit weaker than maybe it normally is at your end. I'm not sure, but yeah, keep me in the loop on that. Okay, let's go back and let's make sure we finish up, we get down this agenda. Okay, so what have we said so far? We've had a little look at this teacher account. We're good at that. We've had a little look at group tracking downloads. We've had a little look at the mastery tracker. This refers to that copy across to that tracker document. We call it the mastery tracker because we expect mastery. Okay, that's what the challenge is. That's what the standard is, mastery every single time. And again, I repeat, we can only do that, we can only set that mastery challenge if we provide a variability of the seat time. Okay, now actually I was going to take a moment to emphasize something here. This is one of the least discussed concepts in education, but it's one that so many of us work with every day. If in education we have a fixed seat time, and what I mean by that is that, you know, we can literally count up how many hours they get of content delivery, how many hours they get of homework, how many hours they get of worksheet work, or whatever it happens to be. You know, we can say that if we get a fixed seat time model of education, that will, amongst all other things, always guarantee that we get a variable achievement rate. Okay, so my point is this: the fact that we've got students who at the end of courses are, you know, many of them achieving really well, of course, but some aren't. The fact we've got that has little to do with the intellectual facility of those students, but it has got a heck of a lot to do with the fact that we fix the seat time that these people get exposed to. Now, we know that if we take a whole range of students and we say, right, this is the finish line over here, this is the finish line, we know that they've all got a different length journey to do. So my point is this: why don't we vary that seat time and actually fix the achievement rate at a much higher standard? Now, you might say to me, well, James, you can't guarantee that every student will get an A star. No, I can't. But what I can say is that on a lesson by lesson basis, let's say that every student is expected to master, and let's vary not the achievement rate, but the seat time. So let's vary these things, not the achievement rate. That's my point, really. If we vary the seat time, we can actually produce a very high performing student, even if they haven't done that previously. Now then, the teacher support, I just want to be clear on this, the teacher support, that is the 85, that is the 85 HD videos, the 85 HD videos for teachers. So, I sometimes sort of describe that as, I believe it's about 5 years worth of CPD, which is available to you at any time, at your own pace, when you choose, in the order, the rhythm that you want to do. No longer should we live in a world where teachers, people who've done degrees, master degrees, have families living, really mature lives, that we have to wait for someone to say, oh, we're doing CPD today. No, we don't need that. There's nothing wrong with doing that as well, but we should have ongoing, constant CPD, which is available to us. Now, it's not just a nice idea. If we say ongoing CPD through professional discussions, through reading blogs, of course, those things are perfectly valid too. But what I'm saying is we can have high quality CPD available through video tutorials such as these, not only mine, such as these, and they can really upskill teachers at their own pace. All right, so I'm just going to come back into the webinar room for a few minutes. What I'm going to try here, I tried this last week and it went really, really badly. So let me see if I can do this again. I'm going to provide a voucher which is available for anyone that's purchasing group and department accounts, I should say. Now, you're probably already aware that with the department accounts, there's 15% off in September anyway, and this is an additional voucher that you can use as well. It's just a minimum spend of £200, but if that is the case, you can use this voucher. I know some of you have been asking me about that, so I'll include that here. So hopefully this is going to appear for you in just a moment's time. Okay, so just bear with me a second. Okay, I seem to have a JavaScript block here, which means that once again is not going to come up for you. But what I am going to do is I'm going to give you the code, and let me put that on the screen for you every week. Let me put that on the screen for you. So if you do want to claim that voucher, you need two things. One is you need your email address, which is the one you registered with for this evening's webinar, and you need this code. It's called Web25 off. Okay. Web25 off. So when you make an inquiry to purchase a school department group account, use that code when you email me and you get in touch with me, and you receive that additional £25 off. So I'm just going to come back onto the screen again. Bear with me a second. So a couple of things I want to talk to you about in terms of actual kind of like group structures. You've probably seen already that it's quite easy to set up sort of class tracking, so a teacher can manage their group and the data that comes out of their group. That's a perfectly achievable thing to do. What I'd like you to perhaps realize even more is that you can have tiers and layers to that tracking. So for example, what's very common with a lot of schools that sign up with me is that they have their classroom teachers that manage their classes, makes sense. But then they have their course managers that receive the data for the whole cohort. So they can actually manage every single piece of data. So imagine that course progress, completed steps page that we looked at, and all the quiz activity that we looked at for a course manager. That would become really rich. You could have a whole overarching view of how the students are developing on this particular platform. Now, I want to be clear here. We don't see, or I don't see this as the full educational experience. What happens in your classroom is absolutely pivotal to the development and learning of these students. And that's where we should be given time for interaction. That's where we should be given time for discussion, questioning, group work, making things, building things, breaking things, projects. That stuff should be able to take place in the classroom. And of course, by varying the seat time and having lectures available in this format, it allows more time for that kind of structure to take place. So that's something that's really important to the philosophy of what we do here. Andy, so do we have anything on section BC? Excuse me, AQA coursework at the moment? No, Andy. It's something that I know it's a heck of a bit of work, that one, isn't it, for the students? That's something I have every intention of putting it in, but of course I'm going to sort of hedge my bets and just see what gets ratified on that A-level specification of 2000 and 2016, and just see if I can tie some things together. It looks like there's going to be quite a lot of overlap there with the current methodology, but I'm just sort of watching that carefully at the moment. All right, a couple of things before we sort of go to like a clear question and answer sort of session. I said I'd mention the idea of best practice to you, For me, lots of schools will sign up to this service, and the idea of this service will be it'll become a homework package, or it'll become an extension package, or it might even become like a revision club package or something like that. I think this system can actually be really embedded into the main learning framework that you offer your students for the courses that you teach. What do we mean by that? Well, first of all, no one's suggesting to you that you shouldn't teach your lessons and you shouldn't stand and do some kind of lecture in the classroom. What I think I would argue is that that shouldn't be the default or the only way that the student can receive that information, that tutorial. So, as I said before, that students do benefit from group teaching, but when they only get that teaching through group structures in a one-pace-fits-all model, then we have a scenario whereby it may well be that that doesn't suit a majority of learners. So think about the ideas that a video tutorial made by me, could be someone else, by the way, it's not, you know, there's other people that do them, but video tutorials actually allow that concept of the student stopping, pausing, dragging back, or if on the other side, if they're really flying and they've mastered that quiz, to move on to the next topic. They don't necessarily need to wait for the group. So when we talk about that, we move into a notion of kind of blended learning, and I'm going to do future webinars on that exact topic and looking in more detail what we mean by blended learning. But blended learning is when you take the best bits of the classroom, those being the human interaction, the facilitation caused by the teacher, the brilliant, poignant, provocative questioning that the teacher produces. We might also talk about things like practical experiences, exemplification of knowledge, using knowledge in real scenarios. Those brilliant things about the classroom, as a huge motorbike goes past my window, those brilliant parts of the classroom can be combined with the best parts of kind of e-learning. Now, that's not to say that we just sort of throw young people to a MOOC and hope that they get on with it. No, no, no. It's combining those two things together and getting the best out of them that we possibly can. So best practice for me will be different for different people. How I would do it would be very self-paced, humanistic sort of learning methodology, and I would have a lot of confidence in that. But that wouldn't necessarily be the right way for everybody to go. I think, you know, some people might initially go flipped learning model methodology, might then incorporate some of the tutorials, the quiz and the activities into the classroom time, and then bit by bit move in that direction. So that best practice for me is an individual thing, but I think it's something that, you know, we've got to ask questions about the dominant model of education in our system. You know, I'd ask everybody out there who's watching this session tonight, why is it in our education system, I'm going to get sort of finger waggy because I sort of do feel quite passionate about this. Why are we all repeating the same tasks as one another? If we can get high quality teaching to young people in these sort of tutorial formats, does that mean, can that mean that the reliance that young people have on their physically present teacher to deliver that to them in one pace fits all sort of methodology can be questioned and can be changed? Now, I don't want that to be a threatening thing to people, because of course what we replace that with is something much better. And there's nothing wrong with delivering material, but maybe it's that, you know, go back to that tracker idea, is delivering material sharply to exactly where it's needed, not just to everybody in the rhythm of a lesson 1 is topic 1, lesson 2 is topic 2, lesson 3 is topic 3, etc., etc. But specific delivery, exactly where it's needed, exactly when it's needed, based on really sharp data. So for me, that's really best practice. Lloyd, I teach a huge variety of students, A-star to U grades, and they will all really enjoy the option to view the videos to reinforce knowledge. This is a great service for the students. Lloyd, that's really kind of you. I wasn't going to go into this now. I want to tell you something, Lloyd, actually, that I think you might find interesting. I encourage you to go and research it for yourself and to think about it yourself. Blended learning has produced a huge range of data in the last 4 or 5 years. Huge data coming out of Khan Academy is a good example of that, and it shows something very clearly, and that is that what we consider to be our lower ability students, when they are given flexibility of time and access to master base concepts, you know, to really revisit the things that they fundamentally didn't understand in that previous model, that yes, they sort of stay at this lower end of learning for a period of time, and those that, you know, are traditionally stronger students fly off into the distance. But also what happens is that these people gain skill, knowledge, and confidence, and then they go. And that, of course, becomes a very difficult thing to achieve in a traditional classroom structure, when the student's very reliant on the one-pace-fits-all methodology. Now, I'm not suggesting all people out there do use a one-pace-fits-all methodology. I'm sure there's people out there who do some brilliant achievements with differentiation, but that is really in spite of the system, not because of it. In the one-pace-fits-all fixed seat time model, differentiation really becomes the optimal achievement, because ultimately it is one-paced. So differentiation becomes the optimal experience. But in this model, differentiation is inevitable. You can't have, it would be almost impossible to fail to differentiate because of the structural scenario that you find yourself in. So that for me is a big advantage, and something that people should really consider. Look, I'm going to encourage people to post as many chat comments as you can, please. I'm going to try and answer as many questions as I sort of humanly can in the next 5 minutes. When I close the webinar this evening, you will be taken off into the mypexam.org website. It will take you onto the contact page there. That contact page will, I would encourage you to make an inquiry from that contact page, and really to think about setting up your schools, your students, your groups in those group structures. I want to be clear here, what I do is a business now, right? It used to be free. I've been working for the last 12 months, for nothing really. Trying to set this up, trying to get this going. The goal was never to make this a business. The business side of it became inevitable because there were no support structures for an organization which tried to provide things for free. So it's a difficult one for me. I believe in it as a free model, but for it to survive and it to be sustainable and for it to continue, then there has to be some money in there, because that's the world we live in, right? So, Mark, good to see you, by the way, Mark. We always have amazing conversations, so I'm really glad to see you in here tonight. Many of my boys have already started the journey, complete the quizzes. Can I find them and access their data retrospectively? Yeah, Mark, I mean, you definitely can. I don't know whether you missed maybe the start of the session tonight, Mark, but you will get the recording as well from this, so I'd just encourage you to have a look at that. But absolutely, every interaction the student makes with the site is available to you as the teacher. I think that's critical. I'm going to repeat what I said before. That tracking potential, that potency that it provides is a good thing, right? That tracking is a really good thing, but it is nowhere near as important as the potency of the intervention we put in place, because we've got that razor sharp data. I know I've reword that. I've experienced many times in my career a hell of a lot of tracking, a hell of a lot of report writing for SLT, a hell of a lot of looking at spreadsheets. Looking at a spreadsheet achieves literally zero until we intervene with a razor sharp, loving, compassionate, supporting, empathetic action with that learner. And that's what I hope that data can enable you to actually achieve. So I'm very much on the tracking plus intervention equals upskilling, upgrading, rather than just a tracking mentality. But of course, you need the tracking bit first, right? And data's not bad in education. We have a tendency to say, oh, man, I've got more data. That's because it's hard to come about. You're guessing a lot of the time, predicting grades, target grades, working at grades. Or a lot of teachers really trying to look into the minds of young people. Well, let's get that data coming back at us rather than the other way around. Let's get that data coming back at us so that we can use that data to have really sharp conversations with the learners and the learners' parents and so on about what's actually happening. We've got a real philosophical barrier in education for the use of data to predict exam outcomes. We can do that to an extent, but isn't it more relevant that we look at the actual learning experience, use data to look at the learning experience that learners are actually going through, data that actually reveals the concepts that the student has and hasn't grasped, and then we can intervene on that level. And if we do that, plus we've got really good delivery, plus we've got really good resources, plus we've got really good exam question access, mark scheme access, great experience with projects and groups, then of course what we're going to get at the end of that is really good exam outcomes as well. Russell, just exported a group. Where can I find the tracker to drop the data into? Yeah, Russell, if you go into, I wonder if I can actually give you the link right now. you need to go to a blog post to download it. I'm going to see if I can drop it into the chat for you right now. Just bear with me a second, Russell. If it's in the blog and it's decided to go slow, just a bit annoying. But yeah, I'll drop this link into the chat for you, Russ, and then hopefully that's gonna, yeah, so there you go. So Russell, if you go in there, and by the way, you can download, I think there's 16 of them or 17 of them, obviously, you know, for GCSE courses, short courses, AS courses, A2 courses. You can download all of them if you want to, but obviously pick out the ones that are relevant to you and relevant to your groups. They're all the same, other than they have a different lesson structure in each of them. And yeah, use them to your heart's content. They're really good. They're really, really good. Those things, I'm actually hoping to build them actually into the site platform longer term, so you don't have to do download and copy. So you know, those processes are going to improve as we go through the experience. But yeah, it's a good model, and it's something that's it's really worth using. It certainly improves the tracking aspect on the site, and for me, that completed steps bit is that sort of the nitty gritty for me. And then when you get to sit down with the students, which of course you've got more time to do, because perhaps, you know, you're planning, delivering, marking a bit less maybe with this sort of system, then you've got maybe more time to interact with the students, to have one-to-one small group discussions, discussing marks, what's gone wrong, what's gone right, that sort of conversation. That is rich stuff, you know. I mean, that is really, really rich experience. If you can get more of that into your classroom, it's a good thing. Trying to squeeze more in the previous model is hard. It's just going to give you more work to do, but maybe in this sort of model, it might be possible for you. So yeah, so look, I'm available for questions. Do please post them onto the chat, and I'll do my very best to answer them. If you're interested in signing up, go to mypexam.org, have a look at the pricing, have a look at the you're welcome, Russell. Have a look at the contact page and how you actually inquire that way. That will come straight through to me, and I will get back to you as immediately as I humanly can do with the information that you need. If you do sign up, there's a bit of a process there of registration documents, and once you return those, about a 2 working day process to get you up and running. So I said, post any questions you like, and I'm here to answer them. I love doing these things, showing off a bit, being on the internet, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, if I can answer anyone's questions, then you know, I'd be really happy to do so. So yeah, far away. So look, I'm going to sort of wrap up until people do ask me those things. I do want people to know, I sort of touched on it earlier, that the purpose of this is more activistic and social than it is business. I wish I didn't have to charge for this, to be perfectly honest with you. It's something I'm really uncomfortable with. But our society doesn't structure support for free organizations unless you know, if you want it to be good, it has to involve, you know, fairly substantial sums. So I don't know, I wish things weren't that way, but they are. So yeah, so that's why we do it. What I would promise every single one of you in here this evening, any other time I work with you, is that this movement will not stand still. It will never stand still. It's something which is going to grow and grow and grow and grow. You can probably see in me that there's aspects of this which are educational, there's aspects of this which are social, there's aspects of this where I'm just annoyed, I'm just frustrated that, do you know what, that we haven't probably been given the information that we needed to be given as young teachers when we're developing through our CPD. No one ever asked me the question, why does a classroom need to be shaped like a box with roughly 25 people, roughly 1 teacher, and roughly taking an hour? No one ever encouraged me to ask that question. And I think we can change things. I really think we can change things. Change is possible, and I'm trying to contribute my little bit to try and achieve that. So that's really what drives me, you know, that the energy to do this stuff. That's what drives that. Lloyd, thanks for your comment, Lloyd. You've done the work, mate. I know I did. I'm not saying it's not an apology, right? It's not. I just wish it didn't have to be that. I just think that you know, there could be other things, other ways to do it. So yeah, I am Lloyd, right? I am, but yeah. I just wish that, you know, really high quality education was free to young people all the time, and I'd like to be part of that. And maybe we can do that. I don't know, but yeah, I got to a point, obviously, where I didn't have a job and I had no choice. But yeah, anyway, I'm not going to talk about that anymore because you know, it's probably revealing too much. My pleasure, Ash. Really glad to have you here. Andy, loads of positive comments on the screen. Any chance of getting some YouTube clip into the screencast just to break up the black screen? Do you mean which bit? I'm not sure which bit you mean, Andy. Feel free to clarify that for me. Do you mean in the webinars like this evening, playing some automated videos? I did plan to do that tonight, and I played with it a bit early on today, and my streaming at home was not fast enough to get a really good connection. I'm not sure if that's what you mean. Feel free to clarify that for me. Mark, thanks, James. Looking forward to using this product. It fits well with my teaching approaches. Yeah. Like I said, Mark, look, I absolutely adore chatting to you as well. So let's keep that going. Let's keep that conversation going as frequently as we can. So really enjoy speaking to you. I actually, this happens when you speak to anyone, right? But I feel like I learn from you all the time as well, Mark, which is really good. So Gary, what is the cost per school, please, James? Does it encompass GCSE and A-level P? Looks excellent. Well, let me show you that. If I just quickly screencast that for you, entire screen. Let's do that. Let me just show that to you. So I'm just gonna, if you go to the website and just click on pricing, it will show you here. So students can actually enroll themselves onto the site for a GCSE or an AS-RA2 component completely of their own free will, and they can do that on the site with no other help. They just have to pay through PayPal, and they get complete access. But of course, they're not being guided by a teacher, and their data only goes to themselves. Nothing wrong with that. It's just not as potent as the other ways. The other end of the scale is to buy this totally unlimited department package. So to answer your question, yes, that is all courses, all teachers, any combination, all the tracking, all the teacher support. Now it's $650 per year, which I know is a big number. It's 15% off this month. When I say this month, if you order this month, you get 15% off the total fee. And of course, there's the £25 voucher I've mentioned tonight. On the group stuff, if you don't sort of have enough students to get you up to that sort of level, that's the maximum anyone can pay, by the way. If you don't have enough money, if you don't have enough students to get you up to that level, then of course you can pay per student. And the fees that are per student here just come down a little bit with groups. So let's say you've got a small number of AS, maybe you've got a couple of AS students and a couple of A2 students. It may well be worth more your while to look at the group fees, to buy the tracking, which is £50 per year, and to buy the teacher support, which is £50 per year. And then, of course, it makes it significantly cheaper than over here. If you've got 2 or 3 GCSE groups and you've got an A-level group at AS and A2, this is the sort of range you're going to be into. So it's worth looking at that sort of package over there. All right. So I'm just going to come off that screen share there. So look, I'm going to wrap up. So I'm going to say a massive thank you to all of you for joining me, and yeah, I really enjoyed doing this. So I'll be available on Twitter after the session. I know a lot of you use that. If you want to ask any further questions, feel free. Do go and have a look at the contact page, get in touch, and we'll get you the information that you need. Thanks for joining me. It's busy in here. People got a lot to do. It's Monday night and you tune into this, and I genuinely appreciate it. All right, have a great evening, and I hope to hear from you soon.